What's doing, everybody? Today is Tuesday, September 16th. Tyler Robinson, the assassin of Charlie Kirk, has confessed in a Discord chat room. He's expected to appear in court today to face charges for murder. My friend Jim Pfaff from the Conservative Caucus joins me to break it all down. I'm AlecLace. This is the AlecLace Show.
The American family is under attack. Parents are the underdog of this nation. Your children are being indoctrinated. That's right. Your children. They do not belong to the state. They do not belong to the school system. They belong to you, the parents, as a blessing from God our Father. So let's preserve, protect, and fight for the American family together. You're listening to the AlecLace Show. The future is family.
All right, welcome everybody to the AlecLace Show. I'm happy and honored as always to be here with you guys. Thanks for tuning in. If you're watching the broadcast as it streams live on Rumble, please get down there, hit the share button. Don't forget to follow the channel. Thanks for joining the show here. Share the broadcast with everybody in your network and your neighborhood. Listen, this is still a very dark time right now in America. I am pissed off. I'm fired up about what has happened here. I'm angry at what I'm seeing, and I think many people in this country are right now. This was not just an attack on Charlie Kirk, an assassination on Charlie Kirk. This was an attack on our entire movement. And this was aimed directly at us. The way they feel about Charlie Kirk is the way they feel about you and me. And it has been perpetrated by the Democrat Party for so long. It makes you sick. And they're on the Hill right now, the Senate Judiciary Committee, interviewing Kash Patel. And you listen to these Democrats, and it's like now, I don't even consider what they say. They sound like completely unhinged lunatics and tired of it. Tired of it from the Democrats. They have painted us all as racists and Nazis and fascists, and they've put a bullseye on our backs. And they certainly put one on Charlie's, and they got him killed. They got him killed with convincing these young kids, convincing these young leftists that Charlie Kirk was a fascist, that he was a Nazi. So, and you're seeing the celebrations today, and people are getting fired from their job. Texas, they had over 100 teachers. There's teachers. It seems like so many of these teachers, over 100 teachers in high school, out of a job because they're celebrating Charlie Kirk's assassination. And you love how the left right now is saying, oh, well, they have to condemn both sides. It's both sides. Now it's both sides. They keep saying that. Oh, we have to condemn it. Remember when the Black Lives Matter was burning the country down? And if you uttered the words, all lives matter, what were you called? You were called a racist. It was a dog whistle. If you said, well, what about all murders? What about all victims? No. That's racist, they told you to say it. When the BLM, after the George Floyd was happening, and they were burning down their own cities, and you were saying, hey, all lives matter, you're a racist for saying it. So now, all of a sudden, that Charlie Kirk is murdered in front of his family and thousands of people, and the entire world sees it, they're trying to say, oh, no, but all political violence, No. This blood is on your hands. Is sickening. So now this Tyler Robinson apparently confesses in a Discord chat room. Kash Patel was talking about this yesterday. They got to be very careful with how they go about it. They got to subpoena the Discord chat room to make sure everything is done with the proper legal steps so they can use it. He said in this chat, this chat in Discord was going on prior to the assassination. So there's about 30 people that were in this chat room. And when they mentioned Charlie Kirk got shot in the chat room, this kid said, that he did it. He said, I'm surrendering through a sheriff friend in a few moments. Thanks for all the good times and laughs. You've all been so amazing. Thanks for everything. So he posted that at 2:57 p.m. the day after Charlie Kirk was assassinated, and 10 p.m. that night he turned himself in. So this was a confession. Now, all other messages, according to Kash Patel, that were sent to, I don't know if it was his gay lover, his trans gay lover that he was living with that he sent the message, but he sent the message to somebody prior to the shooting saying, I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and I'm going to do it, right? And he was obviously against everything Charlie stood for. So we have a premeditated murder is what happened here. And he's going to be today at 3 p.m. Utah time. He's going to appear in court to face charges. If the death penalty by firing squad is not on the table, there's going to be an uproar in the country. They got to charge this kid, and the death penalty has to be the result. There is no exception to anything else. If it's life in prison, people are going to be pissed. There's going to be an uproar like you wouldn't believe. And if you're not going to give the kid the death penalty, then take the death penalty off the table forever. Never use it again. Because if you're not going to use it here, you may as well never use it again. So the death penalty here is a must. Kash Patel also said they have the DNA evidence on the screwdriver that was found on a roof, the DNA evidence found on a towel that the gun was wrapped in. They also have a note that he tried to destroy that they were able to salvage with the same message that I have the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk. I'm going to do it. Now, I have seen all the other, if you want to call them conspiracies that are going on Twitter with the different theories. Oh, he was wearing a bulletproof vest, and the bullet nicked the bulletproof vest and then went up into his... I don't know if he was wearing a bulletproof vest. A lot of the pictures of his shirt looks like you could see his pecs under the shirt. So I don't know if he's wearing a bulletproof vest. They say that there was a guy in the crowd who motioned to his arm, and he might have shot him. It was a close-range shot, and the kid fired a empty round, a blank. There's one on the side where they show some kind of flash, and they say, oh, it came from that side. So now we're getting into the JFK. There was a second shooter on the grassy knoll. We're getting into all of this stuff right now. Now, I don't know what's right and what's wrong, and what's true and what's not true. I don't know. I'm going with what it looked like. It looked like he got shot in the neck from an elevated position head on there. I mean, that's what it looked like. So I don't know. I'm not a forensics guy. I'm not a weapons specialist. I don't know. And I'm sure we'll get to the bottom of all that, but it seems like, we don't need this to drag out like a 60-year Kennedy assassination, 1 million-page report, a commission report. We just need the facts, and we need them fast. We need them accurately. And again, Charlie Kirk was somebody who was leading people to Christ. That's what he was doing. So we say, yes, he's a martyr for the conservative movement. He's a martyr for Christianity. This guy was leading young people to Christ, and if you saw your churches, you had more people there this week. And I hope your pastor mentioned Charlie Kirk by name. Mine did. I was grateful to see that. You have to acknowledge, if you are in a church and you're not going to acknowledge what Charlie Kirk has done to energize young people and lead them to Christ, then what are you in the business for? What are you doing it for? There's nobody on the left that's even in the same league. You can't even mention anybody in the same breath that as somebody who is leading people to Christ, particularly young people, which is exactly what the church needs, which is what Christianity needs. Charlie Kirk was like playing the role of Andrew, the disciple here on earth. I mean, I'm an amateur on the Bible, but the disciple Andrew is consistently leading people to Christ in the Bible. He does it with he finds the kid with the fish and the bread, the loaves of fish and the loaves of bread and the fish, and brings him to Christ, where he feeds all of 5,000 with the fish and the bread. Right? That he leads that kid to Christ. He leads his brother Simon to Christ. Simon becomes Peter. Simon Peter. He becomes Peter, the head of the church. On whose rock I build my church. That was Andrew that led him to Christ. Right? Same thing with the Greeks during the Passover. Andrew, and I believe it was Philip. I don't know. But it was Andrew led the Greeks to Christ. He's constantly leading people to Christ. That is the role that Charlie Kirk played on this earth. He was leading people to Christ. And again, Christianity is under attack. We've seen Catholic school kids murdered a couple of weeks ago. But they say, oh, no, everyone's under attack. All lives matter now. Now the Democrats are, oh, no, all lives matter. When you tried to say that, they told you were racist. Now all of a sudden it's, oh, no, all lives matter. It just happens to be Christians that are getting slaughtered. It just happens to be conservatives that are being targeted. And you can never put the toothpaste back in the tube here. These Democrats that have been celebrating and dancing on Charlie Kirk's grave for the last few days. And now they're crying because they're getting fired. And they're looking for sympathy. Now they're the, now they're the victim. They have found the way to even become a victim in Charlie Kirk's assassination because they were fired from their job. They feel like, I should have the right to be able to celebrate the murder of an innocent American. Yeah, you have the right, but that doesn't mean you have the right to stay employed. And they're all upset over that. So where do we go from here? Where do we go from here? It's hard to cover any other story. I can't really get my head around. There's so many other things. Trump is over on his way over to the UK, or he's in the UK already. He's sending in the National Guard to Memphis. We had another narco-terrorist boat that was obliterated. There's so many other stories to get into. I can't even get into them. I can't even start to look at them and seem like they matter. It's like when you have a loss, when you have a personal loss in your family, it's one of those, and anybody that's lost a mother, a father, a wife, a husband, a family, close, immediate family, you're in that fog of like the world stops. Nothing else seems to be happening. Like your whole world ended. Meanwhile, the whole world is moving on. Everything outside of you is continuing. People are getting coffee, going to work, they're laughing, having fun. Meanwhile, for you, you're in a state of frozenness. And politically, that's how it feels right now for me with the Charlie Kirk assassination. Obviously, his family members are going through that grief right now. But on the political part of it feels kind of frozen. Like I can't get out of the zone of just focusing on the Charlie Kirk assassination story. Meanwhile, as you're frozen and as I'm frozen on this story, the rest of the political world is moving on. That's why President Trump is who he is. He's got the country to run here. This is a personal friend of his that was murdered. But politics moves on. And I can't seem to make that adjustment yet. And I'm not going to today. I'm going to have Jim Pfaff on. We're going to talk more about all this stuff and break a lot more of it down. And just on a program note, I'm going to be filling in for Chanel Rion next week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So I will be on One American News Network covering for Chanel Rion Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And I'll probably stay down there for the White House Thursday, so there probably won't be any AlecLace show next week. But I want you guys to tune in, if you can, to OAN next week because I'm fired up and I'm going to bring everything I got when I go on there to cover that show. So tune in. It's on YouTube TV. If you have the NFL ticket or something like that, and it's on YouTube TV, you can get the OAN app. I would encourage you, tune in because mainstream media is finished. Done. They are complicit. The mainstream media is complicit in Charlie Kirk's assassination, just as the Democrats are. You cannot paint people for a decade that they are Nazis and they are fascists and they're Hitlers, and then be surprised when they're murdered and gunned down in cold blood. You've convinced these people. You've suckered these people into thinking something that's not true. Here's the whole point. Here, look. I'll put this and then I'll get Jim on the show. This is the lunacy that you're facing here. Here's Brian Krasenstein, okay, on the left. This is a left-winger. What he says here perfectly explains the lunacy. Listen to what he says. If you're a man who has a relationship with a trans woman, you are in a heterosexual relationship because she is a woman and you are a man. This is what we're dealing with here. This is the logic that we're dealing with. He's saying that the kid, Tyler Robinson, he wasn't gay, even though he's dating a man. Brian Krasner is telling you, no, he's heterosexual because the man he's dating believes he's a woman. This is what we're going up against. This is what they're teaching your children in school. And if you disagree, now Brian Krasny is flat out telling you here that 2 + 2 = 5. And if you disagree with them, you're a transphobe, racist, bigot, and you're going to get shot. This is what we're up against. They're taking reality, completely distorting it, and if you have a problem with it, they're going to shoot you over it. And people are done with it. I've been done since the beginning of it with this transgender nonsense. And the other thing, I don't know, people coming at me too with the furries. They're saying, I'm not saying it right. They don't think that they're animals. They just have some sexual fetish with animals. I don't know what's going on with this furry thing. I have no clue. These people, to me, seem like they're out of their minds. I don't know what kind of drugs these kids are all been on, but you do have some people that come to school now thinking that they're a pet. You have other people that dress up in these furry costumes for these fetish parties or something. It's gotten crazy. But apparently the kid was into the furries. I don't know. What type of lunacy is involved in that? And we're putting all these young kids. We got to look. Was this kid on any of these SSRIs? What kind of medication was this kid on? Every kid gets a medication for ADHD or whatever the hell they go. They tell every kid's got a condition and they need medication. SSRIs. They're all on antidepressants. Half the country is on antidepressants. And I don't know if it played a factor in this kid's life or not. I'm not saying it did. All I know is it's playing a major factor in a lot of people's lives, and it hasn't been good. And like I said, the mainstream media, they are complicit. And you know what? And I have seen it. I've seen it online. You know, when Melissa Hortman, the Democrat House senator or the state senator, was assassinated, gunned down at her home with her husband, and I reacted immediately, you know, saying how sad that was, praying for her family, as everybody else I saw on the right did. I didn't see anybody dancing on her grave the way that they're doing with Charlie Kirk. Certainly not by the hundreds of thousands. But my point with Melissa Hortman, she was killed, and which we now know was by a Tim Walz appointee who was trying to help Tim Walz become a senator. I mean, that was his goal in killing Melissa Hortman, according to him and his statements. And my point was Melissa Hortman, she voted against her own party. So that was the statement that I had made. I put out a post showing her speaking, how scared she looked, and said she voted to take health care away from illegals. She voted against it. She was the only one voted against the Democrats, and then she was murdered. So I said, let's make this connection. She voted against her own party, and now someone from her own party killed her. So I put that tweet out, and then you had, as they do, just like they're doing with Charlie Kirk, they're taking clips of Charlie Kirk's videos out of context and trying to paint them into a racist and a bigot and all this other stuff. They did that with me. They took a screenshot of a part of my post, not the whole post, a part of it, to make it seem as if I was calling for violence against Democrats. That's what they did. And I, as a result of that, was getting death threats. I was getting all kinds of, it went on for days. It went super viral. And I was taking, and that eventually Snopes, the far left fact checkers, came out and debunked the whole thing, saying taken way out of context, missing crucial context here. AlecLace didn't call for any violence against Democrats. Now, if you ask ChatGTP, it'll tell you no, that didn't happen. If you ask Grok, so it's all out there for them to see, but it doesn't matter. The damage was done. People are now recycling that screenshot in the wake of Charlie Kirk to say, look, MAGA was calling for violence, and it was all bullshit, just like everything else. It's always nonsense. And none of it's real. They try telling you, oh, Charlie Kirk was against gay people. And then you see like 50 videos of Charlie Kirk welcoming gay people into the conservative movement. So it's like, this is what they do, man. And they're the ones that are telling you about misinformation. They take a little snippet of something and they try to build their story with it and get it out there quick. Just like, oh, the shooter was a conservative. You'd have to be one of the dumbest people on the planet to think it was a conservative that killed Charlie Kirk. You'd have to check yourself into a medical clinic today if that's what you believe. J.D. Vance hosted the Charlie Kirk show yesterday. It was emotional to see it. He had a lot of people on. J.D. Vance, obviously very close with Charlie Kirk. All right, so let's do this. Let's bring on Jim Pfaff from the Conservative Caucus and get more into this. As I said, it's the only story I'll be covering. So, Jim Pfaff, Conservative.
Listen to the AlecLace Show. The future is family.
All right, joining me now, Jim Pfaff. Welcome back to the AlecLace Show.
Good to see you, Alec.
Yeah, I wish we were doing it under better circumstances here. I'll be honest, it's very hard to even kind of cover any other story right now. I know there's so many other things that are happening. Trump heading overseas. I mean, the crime, all this other stuff that we know that we cover, but it's kind of hard to move forward yet from this Charlie Kirk assassination. So what's your take on that? And how did you feel? I mean, talk me through when you originally heard this whole thing.
Oh, goodness. I'll tell you, I was just doing normal work, and I happened to, about the time that it was rolling out, flip over to X, and then suddenly X was exploding with the video of this event happening. At first, I was very hopeful that, you know, he got his neck nicked and it might be a little bit of recovery and he could get by it. But suddenly and sadly, I looked at the one that was much closer, and man, it seemed obvious once I saw that more clear video, he wasn't going to survive this. It's really, it's breathtaking that we live in a country that has come this close to being a third world environment with radical leftists who are determined to supplant everything that we have stood for. And you've got people like the shooter who has, crossed that line so clearly. There are others who have as well in the past and or who've threatened it. I hold and will continue to hold Democrats not directly responsible for this. And I say elected Democrats. I don't mean voting Democrats. I don't hold them directly responsible, but tangentially, they're culpable for the environment that we're living under right now that can lead to something like this. And they've been building this thing for 10 years. It's really breathtaking how we have allowed people of this mindset politically to A, have power, get elected at all, and B, to continue to just downgrade and in a disgusting manner destroy the institutions which have made America great. And we're coming up on our 250th anniversary. I'm praying that this event ends up restoring our faith in what made this country great. And we have an opportunity to celebrate it next year. I hope we can celebrate it under circumstances where things are starting to get back in order.
It seems like it's very hard when you see the amount of celebrating that's happened. I mean, it wasn't like there's like, a handful of anonymous accounts that were sad. I mean, there's people that, thousands of people fired from their jobs today as a result of their celebrating of this. And it's really like, yes, obviously it's the murder of Charlie Kirk, the assassination, but it's a shot at the whole movement. It's a shot at the whole conservative movement. And to your point, the Democrats, I mean, I do hold them accountable because I feel like what they have done has painted all of us as targets over these last years. When you convince a whole bunch, you see it in some of these videos where people are defending the assassination of Charlie Kirk. They're like, well, what do you do with a Nazi? Aren't you glad a Nazi is dead? Like, they are truly and have been completely convinced that we are all Nazis, that we're all racists, that we're all fascists. And when you have that belief in the core of your heart, you find it justified to see a murder of these people. And I don't even know how you can ever reverse that mindset.
There's a deep responsibility on the part of Democrat elected politicians. One thing that gives me a little bit of hope is the fact that tens of millions of Democrats voted for Donald Trump last year. I mean, let's remember that there is a strong core of the American people who don't believe in this stuff on both sides of the aisle. The problem is in the political sphere, there is a real problem with the people on the left side of the aisle. And that's Democrat elected politicians. Listen, we need unity amongst American citizens here. I seek no unity with Democrat elected officials. They have built this thing in a way that to serve them. When you have 3 impeachments of a sitting president on what we knew then, but we know more clearly now, were stupidly false charges, when you have the all-out effort through lawfare to throw this man in prison. And as we're talking just today, Fonnie Willis was thrown off the last of the remaining cases in Georgia. And that's very unlikely to reappear. I mean, they could appoint another prosecutor, but I don't think they're going to at this point at all. You look at that fake trial in Georgia, that it's amazing and breathtaking what these people have done through lawfare. But we also have to throw into the mix here the censorship industrial complex that the Biden administration aggressively built up, that was building up prior to his administration behind Donald Trump's back in his administration. Frankly, culpability goes all the way back to Barack Obama, who, when he was running for president, announced himself as a community organizer. And we are living in Barack Obama's community organizing right now, or we're living with it, I should say. As you look at the billions of dollars that have gone into NGOs that literally in the LA riots, I mean, funded the organizations that were starting that. So there's a lot on the table here. And if we spend even a moment's time trying to find unity with Democrats, and you're going to see some Republicans in Congress try to do that, that's a fake effort. It's a stupid effort. It's an unwise effort. And we need to press forward an American agenda amongst unity within our own movement and with Americans on either side of the aisle who are voters who are right-minded on this. And I do believe that that's a pretty strong majority of Americans.
I do agree with the point there, too, that it has to be unity among the Republicans, because there's been way too much of this public, crushing one another, especially on X and social media, where you have big figures from the right just completely annihilating one another and doing nothing but giving the Democrats fuel to add to their fire. I mean, that's all they're doing. And it's, almost like we've seen it, especially when Trump first got back into the White House. It was, everyone's kind of like having a MAGA measuring contest. Like, I'm more MAGA than you. I did more to get Trump elected than you. And it's like, just shut up. Let's get together here and move the movement forward. Like, everyone wants more credit than this guy. And it's like, it's terrible to see that. We don't see that on the Democrats, where they appear to be united in their lunacy that they keep throwing at us. So, and the other point that I think was brilliant that you said as well is, when you impeach Trump, when you arrest Trump and put up a mugshot of Trump, I mean, you are going at the very core of this entire side of the aisle, and they did it without care whatsoever. They didn't care at all about doing that, and they riled up their base, who loved seeing the mugshot. They call him a felon every time they talk about him. Oh, he's a felon. He's a sexist. He's a rapist. He's a racist, and they are so filled with hate, and it wasn't done by accident. It was all done by design.
And by the way, let me tell you what the next stage of this whole thing is going to be, because Democrats are losing this badly. Like, there's no way that the American people are standing behind them, except the most ardent Democrats who are fine seeing Charlie Kirk murdered, assassinated, which is about 25% roughly. I mean, I don't know the precise number, about 25% of Democrats who get polled. They really cheer this thing. But the next movement, because Democrats are losing this so badly, is going to be to build out a censorship industrial complex by law with social media. We already see this. The New York Times over the weekend put out an op-ed talking about how, oh my gosh, in the wake of Charlie Kirk, the harm of social media that's hurting us. I was even listening on Fox News today, discussions about the problems of social media. Listen, what social media is doing is actually revealing what the problem is. It's not causing greater harm. That harm is there whether social media exists or not. So keep in mind, that's where Democrats are going on this. They don't want to talk about the fact that they built this monster. They're going to try to create a new monster. And actually, if they can do it, and if Republicans are stupid enough to go along with it, try to build out what they were trying to get to from the very beginning. This battle is not over yet. And by the way, just to be clear here, this political battle is not over yet. We've got a lot of work to do over the next 3.5 years, or a little less than 3.5 years, to kill this monster politically and make it ineffective. And that's why, and I'm sure we'll talk about it, but that's why a lot of these firings that you're seeing are absolutely necessary, because we have absolute freedom of speech. The government cannot suborn or abridge our speech, but we cannot escape the consequences of our speech, however mild or bitter that they are. And that's actually part of the cleansing process that in the wisdom of the founders they created.
Well, I want to. I'm going to get into the the celebrating and the firings in a second, but just I want to hone in on the piece you said there with the social media, that I do believe that obviously, yes, we are. It is exposing the truth, because without X, and I think without Rumble, places like that, we wouldn't have a chance to even hear what is going on with the Charlie Kirk assassination. But I do believe that nefarious people are easily manipulating the youth in this country through social media, through these online chat rooms, these game rooms that they're getting into. You don't know who's in there. We see the catfishing happening all the time. You think you're talking to some kid and it's really some 30-year-old pervert. So there is no doubt that people are using that tool of social media and the online world to target our children. And these are kids. This kid that did this to Charlie Kirk, 22 years old. I mean, this Tyler Robinson, he wasn't even born when 9/11 happened. Okay, these people have no idea what the hell is going on, but they're being radicalized, and I think a lot of it takes place online because I don't think they're actually in the public speaking with people. They don't seem to, even this generation of Gen Z, don't even interact in the real world. They do it virtually. So there is some issue online with being able to radicalize, especially the young leftists or Marxists or whatever you want to call them.
Well, the way you address that is not to put any restrictions on online activity. The way you police that is that when people are doing this harm, you need to have prosecutions. Now, I recognize the challenges of getting all the way deeply into that everywhere online. You're never going to do that. Yeah. But what you can do in this particular instance, and Discord right now, which has a lot of the chats of Tyler Robinson and what he was talking about to people available out there, Discord is under strict scrutiny right now for what was allowed. So I think what you have to do is prosecute people when they have committed crimes, and you do need to hold social platforms, culpable where there's real culpability. But you're gonna see a lot of efforts to create laws, to layer on top of this that I think could be really problematic. I was having a discussion on X last night, though, more to this point, where people were suggesting new laws to kind of close in the loopholes of assault. And so, for example, Antifa assaults people when they go out and get their big crowds together. And a lot of those assaults don't get adjudicated because they become low-level misdemeanor crimes. Okay, we can address maybe that issue and close the loop so that if there's just a little bit of harm, that they're accountable to that. We can do that on social media too. But if we try to layer on top of all this new restrictions on social media, we're going to go down a rabbit hole that Democrats eventually are going to take control of things. By the way, one of the things we should do is absolutely, to address online, is absolutely reintroduce the Smith-Mundt Act that was rescinded during the Obama administration. There's an effort to do that, and that restricted the government from putting their fingers into online social media or anywhere else, and the media in general. We need to re-implement that restriction. That actually would be one thing that would be positive, although not comprehensive necessarily.
I have seen people calling for that and renaming it the Charlie Kirk Act. I mean, I have seen people getting into that, and I do agree with that as well. And then getting into the celebrating of the people getting fired, because this has become a thing where they're saying now Democrats all of a sudden are saying like, oh, it's protected free speech. Now the right is against free speech and they're for the cancel culture. And none of us are buying. I mean, I'm not buying it whatsoever. I think that if there's no way to really describe a disgusting person that is celebrating the murder of an innocent American man. And I think the people that are actually bringing this to attention, I think are good. And the alarming thing is, it seems to be the majority seems to be teachers. I don't know what stats you have on this, but from what I've been seeing, it seems like it's coming from the teaching world. So what is your take on the people getting fired as a result of celebrating Kirk?
Sure. I don't know if it's largely teachers, but it's an alarming number of them. Listen, I've been saying this, that because of the consequences of how people speak, I'm calling on every government institution, federal, state, and local, to fire for cause anyone who celebrated the death of Charlie Kirk. Now, there's going to be some gray area on the extreme end of that goes into the I just hate this guy sort of speech, and maybe you don't fire every one of those people. That becomes a little bit more purely political. But if anyone was celebrating his death and gleefully saying things about it, they should be fired for cause immediately. In every government worker at all, anywhere, bureaucrat, teacher, all of them should go. Now, when it comes to private industry, I also would encourage any and we're seeing this too. I would encourage any employer who has someone gleefully, cheering on an assassination and a murder. I mean, why would you even trust someone like that in working for you? If they're willing to go that far publicly to state their glee over the killing of someone, then let's just be honest here. You can't trust them in the workplace. I don't think we need to pass any laws to enforce that, but I think that businesses are already showing, many of them, that they're going to be very responsible to get rid of these things. But they need to go much further. And there are universities out there, Clemson's one of them. There was some other university I saw that announced one person that was put on administrative leave and then suddenly fired. I doubt very seriously there aren't dozens and dozens of people in every public university who were cheering on the death of Charlie Kirk. Every one of them needs to go. We need to clean house in our educational institutions on this, because those are the people who are also helping foment the situation where we can get this kind of violence. That needs to happen immediately, in my mind.
Yeah, there's no question about it. And just giving the one example of the thousands, it's this one teacher in California posted, "Far-right assholes have a target on their backs and deserve to die. One down, millions to go." I mean, something like that. There's no chance you can't fire that guy. I mean, so
Yeah.
like, to your point, if you're saying, "Hey, I thought Charlie Kirk was call him a bad name or something," but when this is a direct celebrating of him dying and also hoping that other ones die. And that's the thing. It's not just about Charlie Kirk. It's about all of it. The way that their expressions are happening towards Charlie Kirk is how they feel about all of us. And that is what's coming out about how violently they want to see us all meet the same fate.
Not one person in any government-funded institution that expresses something similar to that, and not even necessarily as strong as that, even a little less strong than that, they need to be out of government service immediately. Government employees should be neutral in their politics. Get rid of them. Now, one other area of this, Pam Bondi made a really stupid sounding statement that's going around.
She tried to
right
walk
now.
that back today. I know, but go ahead.
Yeah. And she said any hate speech. Well, I have put it out immediately. I summarily come against going after anyone over hate speech. But there are people like the left-wing podcaster and influencer Destiny, who literally said every conservative needs to be at fear of being shot and killed. That's his resolution to all this. Now, people like him ought to be investigated and prosecuted if necessary. So, if you are inciting violence, you are committing a crime. That is an actual crime. And there are a very limited number of all these responses that fall into that category. But there are people like him who should be investigated and subject to potential criminal penalty. That is appropriate in this case. We do not have the rule of law properly operating in this country in some key areas. Donald Trump's winning every case, so I'm not saying it's totally bereft of anything. Donald Trump keeps winning and winning and winning in the courts, but we have to have prosecutors start to prosecute crime. This is one of them, and it needs to be dealt with. But Pam Bondi went way overboard saying they're going to go after all hate speech. Let people who commit hate speech suffer the consequences in their jobs and in their public. The culture can deal with this if we'll let it.
I couldn't agree. And I know she's trying to walk that back today, saying hate speech that leads to, she tried to change the wording of the way she said it because it was bad. And I've always hated the word hate speech. I don't.
Yeah.
And the same thing with hate crime. It's like, how do you murder somebody and it's not a hate crime? Like, I don't understand the whole hate thing is so stupid that we even have that in any part of our society.
No, it's absolutely outrageous. And keep in mind, for people on the left, misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation, as they called it during COVID and after, that's hate speech in their minds too. So if you're going to go after mere hate speech, then just wait. Democrats are going to come right back later and call misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation hate speech. The First Amendment protects all that kind of speech because we as a people can adjudicate it with one another, which is where it should happen anyway. But if anyone's inciting violence in a serious way, and I believe Destiny did, I mean, I'm not an expert on that law, but man, if he didn't, he's very, very close. That stuff needs to be prosecuted, frankly.
Right. And just to the point, I don't think that people that, if you're celebrating Charlie Kirk, you're exposing yourself for who you are. You should be reprimanded at your job. I don't think you should be arrested for it. I don't think you should be
No,
locked away for it. So I
no.
disagree with that train of thought. But I do, if you're saying, like you said, Destiny, if I didn't hear all of it, I know he was on with Piers Morgan saying some of that stuff. But if you're telling people we should go out and murder conservatives, yeah, we got a problem here now. I mean, there's a major issue with what's going on. So there's a big difference between people who are hateful, I guess you would say the word hateful, and people that are, conspiring to commit a murder. I mean, I think there's a big difference clearly between the two.
No doubt about it. And Destiny doubled down on all that on the Piers Morgan interview. It was disgusting what that guy was doing. And by the way, also constantly interrupting everybody. But Piers Morgan's actually done some great work on this, having the right people on his recent broadcasts to work through this. And he shared as well, just to put an emphasis on our shared point. He shared a post by Charlie Kirk where he made it very clear that hate speech is protected in the Constitution. But see, Charlie epitomized how to approach that, because he had a lot of hate coming at him in these college appearances that he did. And look how he handled it. That's an example to the American people and to those of us who are active in the movement of how we handle it. We can take the nasty diatribes that are coming our way, just learn to handle them well. And I'm hopeful that thousands, nay millions of little Charlie Kirks who will do the very same thing will show up all over the country in inspiration after this tragic circumstance.
Yeah, that is the next thing I'm going to go to here is the amount of Turning Point USA chapters now that are going to be opening. I mean, they've gotten thousands and thousands of requests from colleges and high schools to start new chapters. And so this kind of momentum has been kind of like the silver lining after this assassination attempt, which seems to have re-energized the movement in a way that I don't even know. I mean, it seems like there's so much momentum right now. How long do you think that how much of a long-term effect do you think this has on the party moving forward?
I think it's potentially very long term. I mean, it's going to be hard to forget this. Donald Trump's certainly going to promote, and I think he should. I think we want it to be a long-term thing, not so much only for taking on Democrat elected officials, which I think we need to do vigorously and continuously. That aspect of it is very, very important. But what's even more important is that we see the entire American public inspired by a young guy who did such amazing work throughout his career running TPUSA. I mean, remember, he did this as a teenager. He started this organization, and he spent more than a dozen years building it out into something very significant and very positive for the American people. So I do hope there are a lot of TPUSA chapters that mimic and model themselves over the heart and spirit of what Charlie Kirk represented. That will be a very positive force for this country. And so I do believe it will be a long-term thing everyone remembers. But I think I encourage everyone, I certainly will from my organization, the Conservative Caucus, keep that inspiration alive, because it needs to be there. It's a healthy thing for our culture.
And we will see in politics for years and years to come, as the Generation Z and millennial generation starts to get into politics more and get older, we'll see a lot of those Turning Point USA pipeline going into because so many kids are coming through that. And I don't think the left has anything to mirror that whatsoever. I mean, I was trying to think last week when it happened, and I had Congressman Brandon Gill on. We were talking about it, trying to think of, like, who is the equivalent on the left to the Charlie Kirk? Like, who do they have that's even anywhere near that caliber? And I couldn't think of anybody because they don't have anybody that's generating that kind of movement with the youth, unless it's being angry and going out and vandalizing. Like an Antifa is the kind of the big movement that they have on the left with the youth. And ours is like a Turning Point USA. But I couldn't think of anybody that they have like that.
Yeah, don't underestimate the positive effect that began in the last election with Charlie Kirk maybe not taking full credit, but certainly a big chunk of the credit for the 18 to 24-year-olds voting overall 43% for Donald Trump, and male 18 to 25-year-olds voting 53% for Donald Trump. Now, that's a huge shift in that particular demographic towards Donald Trump. Republicans better pay close attention to what generated and caused that. But again, that's a group of people, now that Charlie Kirk's been killed, that number could go way up if J.D. Vance, for example, whoever gets the nomination, really decides to connect into that. And J.D. Vance now, having been such a close friend of Charlie Kirk and his, brilliant time yesterday on Charlie's time on Real America's Voice, he really will be able to do that. We need that energy going into 2026 and certainly 2028. And no, you are absolutely correct. There's no one on the left who generates that. I mean, by the way, the guy who may be that person is Theo Vaughn, who's not a thoroughgoing conservative, but is really very positive towards Trump and has an American agenda behind him. And you're going to see someone like him add to this voice. There are a few others too who are going to add to this voice, who are going to be inspired, sadly negatively, but certainly positively on the back end about what just happened. This was a tragic situation that I think has potentially very positive consequences.
I agree, and it feels kind of awkward to even say that, but yes, I do agree. And the importance of Charlie Kirk too is because he tapped into that young mind. Politics is like, you think of politicians as all older people, like, it's for the young people. They needed that voice, and he had it, man. I mean, and I've been to so many of these Turning Point USAs. The energy from the young Americans it was so refreshing to be around young people that were draped in the American flag and about God and family. So it was so exciting to see, and I know that they're going to continue on. And I was going to ask now, because we're going to move into the funeral. We have a week, so this is going to dominate, I believe, the news up until the funeral at least. But what do you think now? The plan, moving past this, what is going to be? What is it going to look like? How are we going to move forward from this whole thing and get back to, like I said at the top of the interview, trying to focus back on these other stories now and make them as relevant as they should be?
Well, in a purely political analysis, not that I think it needs to be restrained to this story is going to be dominant moving forward, and that's not necessarily a negative thing for people on the right. Now, that's not what I wish for or hope for. I just think that inertia is there right now. But that having been said, Donald Trump has been doing a lot of things right, and I'm going to say this: if and when this story starts to recede through 2026, the America First agenda of Donald Trump is winning, and he's winning on the international stage. Frankly, the UK visit will get some play. I think it's going to be a positive thing on his side, especially after Tommy Robinson's massive demonstration in London over the weekend, which ended up being very positive. There were a few problems on the fringes, but you had a lot of positive energy going there. So there's that sort of thing is going to be there, but the Charlie Kirk thing is going to linger. What could harm this is Republicans in Congress. There's a continuing resolution about to be considered, and it's frankly probably going to be something really stupid. There's 2 reconciliation packages that Mike Johnson has said he wants to introduce, and if he does the right thing and truly gets rid of all NGO funding, and I think Donald Trump was right to say, don't negotiate with the Democrats. That's off the table right now. Yeah. I agree with that. The Democrats are all up in arms about it. But screw you guys. You don't even have our country's interests in mind. So no, it's invalid what you're doing. But anyway, make these reconciliation packages even more aggressive in an America First way, in a reduction of government way. And that's going to be something that's going to be talked about next year too, if Mike Johnson and Republicans are willing to do it.
And I think that's the point, that we need to see action now immediately. The support is there. You can see the vibe right now is high on the right, so you can make these things happen, and we'd be all for them, like you said, to get the NGOs. Also, Trump saying declaring Antifa a terrorist organization. Why that hasn't been done already is baffling, but we got to start doing these things and doing them now. Now is the time. We have the momentum. The ball is in our court. We should be moving rapidly through this, because the base, the constituents are all behind you. But if you make one mistake like this, and and we see a sign that, oh no, it's the same old, people are going to go berserk over this. I mean, we're going to be calling for people's, to get the hell out of there and resign immediately.
Yeah, and I was reading in Psalm 62 yesterday, and it's really interesting because David was calling out to God because he had forces trying to supplant him, trying to tear him down, and he was seeking God's favor. And his response to that was, and I'm saying this both because I believe it, and I think Charlie Kirk would think the same thing. His response to that was to seek God and to ask his favor, and knowing that it's God who builds up nations, who supports people, who brings people to the fore, who can do things well. Democrats are supplanters, and I mean that in the biblical sense, as you read particularly in Psalms, but also somewhat in Proverbs. They're people who destroy, they're destroyers. And what is the strength of this nation is seeking God, asking for his favor, and recognizing that he is providential over the universe. And we seek his wisdom and his moral construct to try to rebuild this nation. What made this country great was that the founders, the believers among them and the non-believers, all saw that God in his hand and his law was what we needed to look to first. If we are willing to build off that foundation again and get that emphasis back in here, I think we can do great things. And Republicans better get that message Republicans in Congress better get that message, or else Republicans out in the country are at least at best going to be not as active as they might otherwise be.
I think that's a fair point, and I think also, like, if you look at the momentum that we had that sprung after President Trump was almost assassinated, when they almost killed him, that kind of put him right over the top for the election. I mean, that we carried that momentum right into November, and I think the two, when we look back years down the line, looking back, I think the two biggest days that changed this country are going to be when Trump was elected and when Charlie Kirk was assassinated, because I think the momentum that we saw that carried us to the election when Trump was almost assassinated, I think it's multiplied so much now, because this young guy, he was murdered in front of us all, and I think this will linger. I mean, I do believe that we can carry this momentum much farther to the midterms and so much farther than that. I think it's changed the party forever.
Yeah, I don't ever want to crassly use events like that for mere political advantage, but political advantage should be taken in the sense of emphasizing the point that Donald Trump's attempted assassination and Charlie Kirk's actual assassination is a continuing narrative on the left that they will use any means necessary. They use that language, by the way, quite often, that they will use any means necessary to get to assert their power over the American people. And it's a violent way of thinking that elected Democrats have. And we have to oppose that in every way. And we need to hold them accountable for that, both at the ballot box and in the culture and political discussion at large.
Yeah, well, listen, we could talk about this all day. Let me cut it down, and I'll have you back on the show. I just, like I said, it's very hard to move on and cover these other stories, that so many other things that are happening right now. It makes you so sick to your stomach to see people continuing to celebrate this stuff online. But what do you got going on over at the Conservative Caucus? You guys got to move on. So what do you got going on over there, and what can we be looking forward to?
Well, we're definitely getting geared up for 2026. I'm working at things where we can also do events state by state. We've got state directors around the country. We're coordinating with them to find ways to put emphasis on this. We had this happen in New York with our state director there that was was part of the big vigil for Charlie Kirk there. We've done this in a couple other places too. Florida is another place that we were able to do this. We're going to continue to emphasize an America First agenda, a pro-American, pro-constitutionalist way of thinking, and we're taking a look at which races that we're going to get involved with, because we can do that under our organization. So people can find out more at theconservativecaucus.com.
Yeah, I have the link down there in the description below. And like you say, you don't want to use this and you say that use this, for pop, but the amount of momentum that is there right now, we got to take advantage to crush the Democrats. I mean, that's what you have to do. I mean, because Charlie Kirk fought so hard against them, against their ideologies, against the evilness that they presented. So I think it is hard to make that separation. Say, am I using Charlie's death for this gain? And you don't want to take that approach. But you want to use this momentum that we are seeing for positive advancement against the enemy that killed them.
Well, Rahm Emanuel always said, never let, some disaster go without taking advantage of it. That's not what this is. This is something that they brought upon us. And now we need to recognize what the significance of this is and then act accordingly. I think for Republicans, this is a wake-up call to remember we have to contend vigorously for the American ideal, which is an ideal of strongly limited government founded by the people, not the politicians. And Senator Tim Kaine from Virginia was just an arrogant jerk last week when he said that we are like Iranian mullahs if we believe rights come from God. He asserts they come from government. They do not. This is a wake-up call that we need to remember to assert that principle, to stand for the American ideal, to look to God for favor and help in this situation, and to build upon the foundation that still exists, even though the house is in disrepair. Let's go repair the house and make sure the foundation remains strong. That's what we're doing here. We're not taking advantage of anything. We're being inspired by something that happened to do what's right.
Yeah, well said, well put. Jim Pfaff, honored to have you on as always. I'll have you back on down the line. Thanks for joining me today on the AlecLace Show.
Thanks, Alec.
All right, grateful to Jim Pfaff for joining me on the AlecLace Show. What you guys think about the interview? Grateful to have him back on. Hard to talk about anything else. A lot of great points from Jim Pfaff. Tough to move forward here, but as a party, we got to take advantage of the momentum that we have and crush these Democrats. I mean, we have to do it. And it's done fooling around with these people. Mainstream media, tune it out. And I hope that these Democrats that are with normal, sane minds have looked around these past few days and been like, why am I a part of this party? This is not who I represent. And again, it wasn't just like 10 or 20 people that were doing this. Hundreds of thousands of people in this country were celebrating Charlie Kirk's assassination, glorifying it. And that's the way they feel about you. That's the way they feel about me. It's just we're in a freaking bad spot here, man. Bad spot. So we got the Charlie Kirk funeral coming up on Sunday, Glendale, Arizona. They're having it in a stadium. It's going to be packed. I would imagine the President Trump is going to be there. It's going to be emotional. And hopefully now we get this kid charged with the death penalty. And any co-conspirators, anybody that had prior knowledge, they got to come down swift and hard. All right. I'll be back on Thursday here again. Program note, next week I'll be on OAN, One America News, covering for Chanel Rion on Fine Point, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you don't have the OWN app, get it. It's on YouTube TV. If you have Spectrum Cable, you have the OAN channel. I would love for you guys to tune in and check it out because I'm going to bring everything I got. I'm fired up. And as I do with this show, too. It's just sickening what's happening right now. So, follow me on X. I'll break anything that I got or comment on what I have as new information comes out. Follow me on YouTube. I put smaller videos up there. And, of course, make sure you follow me here on Rumble. And don't forget to share all of it with your network. All right. God bless all you parents and you listeners out there. God bless our police, our first responders. God bless our military, our veterans. God bless America. God bless Charlie Kirk and his family. And I'll see you guys on Thursday.
You're listening to the AlecLace Show. The future is family.